Everyone says aloe dies in the cold, and they're right, but only if you make the 3 mistakes I'm about to show you, because the real problem isn't the temperature itself, it's what happens inside the leaves when they freeze. Aloe leaf gel is mostly water, and when that water turns into ice, the cells can rupture from the inside out. That's why the leaf can turn brown, soft, and somewhat translucent after frost. But you can dramatically reduce this risk by preparing your plant within 48 hours. These are 3 simple steps that will get your aloe ready for the harshest winter in the United States. And if your plant has already frozen, stay until the end, because in step 3, I'll show you how to tell if it can still be saved and what to cut so it can regrow in spring. But before we talk about saving it, you need to understand why aloe is so vulnerable to cold, because that unique biology explains everything we'll do in the next few minutes. Aloe originated in the desert of the Arabian Peninsula, in places like Oman and the United Arab Emirates, where temperatures are extremely hot and dry year-round. Because of this origin, it evolved to store large amounts of water in its leaves. The leaf gel is about 95% water. This design works perfectly in heat, but becomes a time bomb in American winters. When the temperature drops below 32 degrees, the water inside the cells freezes, expands, and ruptures the cell wall from the inside out. It's the same principle as when you forget a can of soda in the freezer and it bursts. Cold hardy plants, like some mountain succulents, can survive down to -20 at 20 degrees, because they evolved in alpine climates and have self-protection mechanisms. Aloe simply doesn't have that. The result? Dark, translucent, and completely soft leaves, as if they had melted. Now that you understand the biology behind the problem, let's go straight to the 3 fatal mistakes. Most people make mistakes that turn a harsh winter into a death sentence for the plant. The first fatal mistake is watering too much before the cold arrives. It sounds counterintuitive, but the more water you give the plant before a frost, the higher the risk it freezes from the inside out. Remember when I said aloe has 95% water in its cells? When you overwater, you push that percentage even higher, turning each leaf into an ice bomb ready to burst once temperatures drop below 32 degrees. The clear gel inside the leaves is about 99% water. It also contains a small mix of compounds like glycoproteins. Basically, it's water waiting to become ice crystals. So if you live in places like Minnesota, Wisconsin, or the mountain areas of Colorado, where winter is brutal, you need to cut watering drastically 2 to 3 weeks before the first expected frost. The plant needs to be as dry as possible internally to have any real chance of surviving. The second fatal mistake is leaving aloe in damp or poorly drained soil during winter. That's a double death sentence. First, wet soil keeps the roots soaked, increasing the risk of rot even without freezing. Second, the combination of waterlogged soil and freezing temperatures creates the perfect setup to destroy the plant completely. Moisture from the soil moves into the plant's tissues by osmosis, and when that water freezes, it ruptures not only leaf cells but root cells too. If your aloe is planted directly in the ground in places like upstate New York or Oregon, where winter brings constant rain and snow, you need to check soil drainage immediately. Potted plants have an advantage here, because you control drainage and even move the pot to a protected spot. The third fatal mistake, and maybe the most common, is not protecting the plant when temperatures drop below 50 degrees, 10 Celsius. Most people only panic when they see snow or when the temperature hits 32 degrees. But the damage started much earlier. Below 50 degrees, aloe goes into cold stress. It doesn't die immediately, but it starts taking progressive cellular damage. In the 40 degrees to 49 degrees range, the plant only tolerates it if the exposure is short, under 24 hours, and the environment is dry. If humidity goes above 60% or it rains, the damage speeds up dramatically. Below 40 degrees, damage is basically guaranteed. The leaves turn translucent, then darken and become completely soft. In places like Illinois, Michigan, and even parts of Northern California where winter nights drop fast. You can't wait for frost to show up before you act. The golden rule is simple. If the forecast shows 3 consecutive nights below 50 degrees, you need to act immediately. And that's exactly what we'll do now in step 1. I'll show you how to prep your aloe in just 48 hours before frost hits, and how to choose the best place to protect it, either indoors or still in the garden. First step, you need to know when the frost is coming, and that means monitoring the weather forecast like your life depends on it, because your plant's life really does. In the United States, the most reliable app is NOAA Weather Radio or the official weather.gov from the National Weather Service, which sends automatic frost alerts via push notification. Many American gardeners also use IFTTT, combined with the RSS feed from alertsweather.gov, to get an SMS every time a frost alert is issued in their area. If you live in New Jersey, Illinois, or any state where frost is unpredictable in April and October, set up those alerts now. Besides apps, watch for natural signs. If daytime temps drop below 6 degrees and the sky is clear at night, there's a good chance of frost by dawn, because clear skies let ground heat escape straight into space. Now about watering. You should have stopped watering your aloe 2 to 3 weeks before the first expected frost. If you haven't done that and frost is 48 hours away, do not water at all. The plant needs to be as dry as possible internally to minimize the risk of cellular freezing. Also check soil or pot drainage immediately. If your plant is potted, tip the pot sideways for a few minutes and see if water comes out. If it does, the soil is too wet and you need to let it drain completely before protecting the plant. For garden plants, press the soil around the roots. If it's spongy or wet, you have a serious problem, because waterlogged soil freezes faster and transmits cold straight to the roots. If your aloe is in a pot, the best decision is to bring it indoors or into the garage now, before temperatures drop below 50 degrees. But be careful, don't do this abruptly, because sudden changes in light and temperature can cause shock leaves, wilt, drop, and the plant can die even without freezing. Ideally, you'd make a gradual 10-day transition, moving the plant to shadier areas during the day and bringing it inside at night. But if you only have 48 hours, do this. Place the plant in an indoor spot with indirect light, like near a south or west-facing window, and avoid drafts from heaters or air conditioning. The ideal indoor temperature for aloe in winter is between 55 degrees and 80 degrees. Now, if your aloe is planted directly in the garden and you can't move it, you need to prepare protective covers immediately. The most effective material is frost cloth, also called floating row cover. It's a breathable, non-woven fabric that traps ground heat and prevents atmospheric ice crystals from landing on the leaves. You can find frost cloth at any Home Depot or Lowe's in the United States, and it protects down to 2 to 4 degrees below 32 degrees. Old sheets or blankets also work. But never use plastic directly on the plant, like garbage bags or plastic tops, because plastic doesn't breathe, traps moisture, and transmits cold straight to the leaves, causing more damage than protection. If you need to use plastic, create a frame with wooden stakes or PVC so the plastic doesn't touch the leaves. Strategic positioning makes all the difference. If you can still move the pot, place it near an exterior house wall that gets sun during the day, because those walls retain heat and release it at night. Avoid wind-exposed areas, especially north wind, because wind chill makes the felt temperature drop even more. If you live in rural Midwest areas or the Rockies where wind is brutal, protecting from wind is just as important as protecting from cold itself. Now that you've prepped your plant in the last 48 hours, let's move to step 2, where I'll show you the exact covering techniques for different plant sizes, the right materials to use, and how to create protective microclimates that can save your aloe even when temperatures drop to 20 degrees or below. Now that you've prepped your aloe in the last 48 hours, it's time to protect it during the cold period. and the technique you'll use depends directly on the plant size and location. For small potted plants, those under 12 inches tall, you can use a single layer of 1.5 Oz frost cloth, which provides 4 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit of protection above the outside temperature. That means if the outside temperature drops to 30 degrees, under the frost cloth it'll be between 34 degrees and 36 degrees, still risky, but better than nothing. Now, if you live in states like Montana, North Dakota, or Minnesota, where temperatures can drop to 10 degrees or below, one layer of frost cloth won't be enough. In that case, you need to layer. First, place frost cloth directly over the plant without touching the leaves, then add an old blanket on top, and if temperatures will drop below 20 degrees, add a third layer of plastic top over everything, but only as the outer layer, never touching the plant directly. For large garden plants, those over 2 feet tall, you'll need to create a temporary frame with wooden stakes or PVC forming a tent around the plant. Then cover that structure with frost cloth or blankets. The goal is to create a protective microclimate where heat rising from the soil at night gets trapped under the cover, keeping the internal temperature a few degrees above the outside temperature. This technique works because soil retains heat from the sun during the day and releases that heat slowly at night. That's exactly how frost cloth works. It doesn't heat the plant, it just traps radiant heat from the ground. Now, about materials, frost cloth is by far the best option because it breathes, allows about 70% of sunlight to pass through, and you can leave it on the plant for days without causing rot or mold. Old blankets and sheets also work well, especially wool or flannel ones, which have excellent thermal insulation. Bubble wrap can be used, but only as a middle layer between frost cloth and an outer blanket, never directly on the plant, because it doesn't breathe and can trap condensation, increasing freezing risk. And never, under any circumstances, use plastic garbage bags directly on the leaves. That kills the plant faster than frost itself, a technique many American gardeners use, especially in Texas and Florida, is placing old incandescent Christmas lights. Those large C7 or C9 bulbs wrapped loosely around the plant's base before covering with frost cloth. Those old bulbs generate heat, not much, but enough to add 2 to 3 extra degrees of protection. Important, LED lights do not work for this because LEDs don't generate heat, and you should never let the bulbs touch the leaves directly. That causes burns. And never place flammable materials like blankets or frost cloth in direct contact with the bulbs, because that's a fire hazard. The safe way is incandescent lights wrapped loosely around the base, frost cloth on top with 2 inches of clearance from the bulbs, and you turn the lights on only at night, switching them off in the morning. Another extremely effective trick is placing milk jugs or buckets filled with hot water around the plant's base before covering everything. The water releases heat slowly overnight as it cools, creating a passive heat source that can add 3 to 5 extra degrees of protection. This is especially useful if you live in rural areas. You don't have easy access to electricity to use Christmas lights. Now, a critical rule most people ignore. You must remove covers during the day if the temperature rises above 50 degrees. If you leave frost cloth or blankets on the plant during the day with temperatures above 50 degrees, the plant will overheat. The leaves will literally cook from the inside out, and you'll lose the plant even without frost. The correct routine is cover in late afternoon before sunset when temperature drops below 50 degrees, and uncover in the morning when temperature rises above 40 degrees. If you live in places like Wisconsin or Michigan where temperatures can stay below 50 degrees all day for several days straight, you can leave frost cloth on continuously, but need to remove heavy blankets and plastic tops for at least a few hours at midday, so the plant can breathe and get sunlight. Daily monitoring is mandatory. Check the weather forecast every morning and night. Feel the soil around the plant to see if it's frozen, and watch the leaves for early signs of cold damage. And even doing all this perfectly, there's still a chance of damage, especially if temperatures drop to 20 degrees or below for more than 6 hours. And that's why step 3 is so critical. I'll now show you how to assess actual damage in the first 24 to 48 hours after frost, how to tell if your aloe can still be saved, and the exact pruning technique to encourage regrowth in spring. Because sometimes what looks like total death may just be recoverable surface damage. The frost has passed, you covered your aloe properly. But now's the most stressful part. Finding out whether it survived. The first 24 to 48 hours after frost are critical, because that's when the real damage shows up visually. Within the first hours, you may notice some leaves look glassy and semi-translucent, like they're coated with a thin film. Cold damage can create transparent or water-soaked patches as the leaf tissue collapses after freezing injury. Over the next 24 hours, those leaves turn fully soft and wilted and darken from green to brown or black. Cold damage commonly causes mushy leaves and discoloration, sometimes described as turning to mush. Now, how do you know if your aloe can still be saved? There are 3 positive signs to look for right away. First, the plant's base, the central rosette where all leaves grow from, is still firm to the touch. Second, the roots are intact. You'll need to slide the plant out of the pot or gently dig around it in the ground to check. Healthy roots are firm and white to light tan. If they look flat, the plant can recover. Third, at least some of the newest inner rosette leaves are still green or partially green. Even if many outer leaves are mushy, a green and firm center can mean the plant may regrow. Now, the signs of total loss are brutally clear. If the central rosette is soft, dark, and smells rotten, the plant is fully dead, and then there's nothing you can do. If ALL leaves, including the center, are brown, black, or translucent, and the roots are brown, slimy, and foul-smelling, you can discard the plant. In that case, rot has taken over the structure and recovery isn't realistic. If your aloe can still be saved, now is the time to act with proper pruning. But don't cut anything in the first 24 hours after frost. Wait at least 1 or 2 days to confirm what's truly dead. After those 2 days, take pruning shears or a sharp knife and sterilize it completely. A standard method is a 10% bleach solution, 1 part bleach to 9 parts water. Soaking the blade for at least 10 minutes, then rinsing with clean water and drying fully. You can also use 70% isopropyl alcohol by wiping or dipping the blade and letting it air dry. Using dirty tools can spread pathogens through fresh cuts and worsen rot. Now, where to cut? Remove only leaves that are fully mushy, brown, or black. Make a clean diagonal cut as close to the leaf base as possible, without cutting into the central stem. If you accidentally cut into the central stem, the plant may die. After each cut, wipe the blade with alcohol again to avoid spreading contamination, and remove all mushy leaves so they don't rot and infect healthy tissue. After pruning, recovery is slow and requires patience. First, don't water for at least a week so the cuts can dry and callus. Watering too soon can promote rot and infection. Second, place the plant in a warm spot around 65 degrees to 75 degrees with indirect light, never direct sun at this stage, because stressed tissue can burn. Third, keep protecting the plant if the forecast shows new cold waves below 50 degrees. Fourth, don't fertilize until you see new growth, which can take about 4 to 6 weeks. Fertilizing a stressed plant can damage roots and finish it off. When spring arrives, if your aloe survived, you'll start seeing small green shoots emerging from the center of the rosette. Those shoots are new leaves, and that's when you can start light feeding with a balanced liquid fertilizer at half strength, about once a month. Gradually increase watering, but keep the soil dry between waterings. Most importantly, never put it back into the cold after freeze damage. It can be more sensitive in future seasons. Now that you know how to rescue a frozen aloe, we'll move into long-term planning. If you live in harsh winter states, You need to understand USDA hardiness zones and adapt how you grow aloe to your climate. If you live in the United States and want to grow aloe long-term, you need to understand the USDA plant hardiness zone system from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This map divides the country into 13 zones based on the average annual extreme minimum winter temperature. Each zone represents a 10 degrees difference in the coldest winter temperatures. For example, Zone 3 can reach winters as cold as 40 degrees. While Zone 11 rarely drops below 40 degrees, you can find your exact zone by visiting Plant Hardiness rstub.gov and entering your zippy code. Common aloe, Aloe Vera, is rated hardy only in USDA zones 10 through 12. That means it can stay outdoors year-round only in places like South Florida, Southern California, parts of South Texas, Southern Arizona, and Hawaii. If you live in any other zone, which includes most U.S. states, growing aloe outdoors year-round isn't realistic without losing it in the first winter. Now, if you live in zones 3 through 8, you have to grow aloe in movable containers. The strategy is simple. Grow it in a pot in spring and summer, keep it outside for sun and growth, and bring it indoors when nighttime temperatures start dropping below 50 degrees. This usually happens around September or October in most northern states. The transition should be gradual. Bring it in for a few hours at night. Then increase indoor time over 1 to 2 weeks until it stays inside permanently. There's an interesting exception. Some aloe species are much more cold hardy than common Aloe Vera. For example, Aloe striatula, striped stem aloe, can survive down to about 15 degrees, making it hardy to around zone AB. Aloe aristata, known as lace aloe, can tolerate single-digit temperatures if the soil is completely dry. Aloe arborescens and Aloe brevifolia are also considered more cold hardy, tolerating temperatures around 20 degrees to 25 degrees. If you live in zones 7 or 8, these varieties can be grown outdoors year-round with proper protection during extreme cold snaps. Annual planting is critical in cold zones. In spring, when nighttime temperatures stay consistently above 50 degrees, often in April or May, you can start transitioning the plant back outside. In summer, aloe grows vigorously with full sun and regular watering only when the soil dries out completely. In late summer and early fall, you prepare for frost. Reduce watering in September, monitor forecasts in October, and bring the plant indoors before the first expected frost. But what if you don't have space to bring pots indoors? Or you live in a tiny apartment in Chicago or New York? Don't worry. There are creative alternatives and practical solutions that let you grow aloe, even in the most challenging spaces. And that's exactly what I'll show next. If you don't have space to bring large pots indoors, or you live in a tiny apartment, you can build a makeshift greenhouse using affordable materials you likely already have at home. The simplest approach is to build a cold frame, basically a low box with a clear lid that traps solar heat during the day and protects plants at night. You can do this with empty 2-liter plastic bottles. Cut off the bottoms, slide bottles into each other to form long tubes, and line those tubes side by side to build the greenhouse walls. An even cheaper option is using old windows. If you or a neighbor are replacing windows, reuse the old ones as the lid for a cold frame made from reclaimed wood or pallets. With these simple structures, you can extend your aloe's growing season into fall and start earlier in spring, even in states like Ohio, Indiana, Michigan. If you'll grow aloe indoors during winter, sunny windows are your best friend. South-facing windows are ideal because they get the strongest and most consistent sunlight throughout the day in the northern hemisphere. East or west-facing windows can also work, but they provide fewer hours of direct light. If you don't have sunny windows or your apartment has low natural light, you will need grow lights. For Aloe Vera, you'll need a 15 to 30 watt LED 12 to 24 inches above the plant. Don't buy those cheap 5-watt USB lights you see on TikTok. They're too weak to make a real difference. Look for full-spectrum LEDs that provide both blue and red light. Because aloe needs both to grow well. Indoors, keep temperatures between 55 degrees and 80 degrees, which fits most apartments and homes in winter. Winter watering should be minimal. Water only after the soil has been completely dry for at least a week, which may mean watering just once a month or even less. In apartments and small spaces, use compact 6 to 8 inch pots, which are perfect for young aloes and fit easily on window sills. And don't forget community resources. Many U.S. states have cooperative extension master gardener programs connected to state USDA's. These programs can offer free help, workshops, and even garden hotlines where you can call with plant-specific questions. Search Master Gardener plus your state name to find the program in your area. Now that you know these practical solutions, let's debunk the 5 most common winter aloe myths. Because many people lose plants by believing misinformation online. Myth number 1: aloe can handle anything because it's from the desert. Desert doesn't mean always hot. Many deserts have cold nights, but what's rare is the deadly combo of high humidity, repeated frost, and prolonged freezing for days on end, which is common in many U.S. states in winter. Aloe can tolerate a brief temperature drop, but it's not built for sustained freezing, because water in the tissues forms ice crystals that crush and puncture cells. Myth number 2: covering with plastic solves everything. Plastic doesn't breathe, trap moisture the plant releases, creates condensation, and that water can freeze on the leaves, making damage worse instead of protecting them. And if the plastic touches the plant, it transfers cold straight to the tissue like pressing the leaf against an ice block. Myth number 3: if it froze, it's dead. Not always. Sometimes the leaves turn mushy, but if the base is firm and roots are alive, the plant can regrow when conditions stabilize. The mistake is giving up too soon or cutting everything without properly assessing in the first 24 to 48 hours. Myth number 4: you can leave it without water all winter. Aloe likes little water in the cold, but 0 for months can over-dehydrate it, especially indoors with heating and dry air. The practical rule is water sparingly, only when the soil is bone dry, because excess water in cold leads to rot and raises damage risk. Myth number 5: it needs fertilizer to recover. After frost, fertilizing can force new growth at the wrong time and stress roots that are still healing. So it's best to wait for active spring growth to return. If you avoid these myths, the next steps get much easier. And now I'll recap the 3 essential steps you can apply today, before the next cold front. To wrap up, let's recap the 3 essential steps for your winter battle plant. Step 1: 48-hour prep. Stop watering immediately. Check the forecast and move pots near the house or into the garage before temperatures hit 50 degrees. Step 2: protection when it hits. Use frost cloth, never plastic directly on the plant. Layer protection if temps drop hard. And remember to uncover during the day so it doesn't overheat. Step 3: calm assessment. Wait 24 to 48 hours to see the real damage. Look for a green and firm center. And prune dead leaves only after tissue dries, never before. Remember, prevention is 90% of the game. It's infinitely easier to spend 10 minutes covering your aloe today than 3 months trying to revive your rotting plant in spring. So if the forecast in your state shows cold coming, don't wait, start prepping now. And if you found these tips helpful, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next plant survival guides. Tell me in the comments, have you ever lost an aloe to cold? Or do you have a protection trick I didn't mention? I want to hear your experience. Protect your plants, stay warm, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.